Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of Worlds Tonight. I don't know who that handsome interviewer was, but I'm Dash, here with Spawn, Deficio, and Kobe. So, gentlemen, welcome to League Fest. How are we feeling?
Really, really good. It was fun earlier with PTL. We had some insane things after as well, the cosplay sections. We even got this man in a cosplay.
Oh, my goodness.
Kobe.
Guess who I am today?
Beautiful.
I have to say, though, we are following up that cosplay showcase, which means that the bar has been set pretty high for us here in our analytical breakdown of League of Legends.
That is a tough act to follow. I mean, you look at how much work they put into those things, and they're absolutely amazing. Honestly, to stand here and be so close to them, they really are a work of art. I honestly can't describe it.
No, exactly. Like, they're so good at making these cosplays. We spend like 3 hours doing our ties. Like, it's really not even close here, and we're pretty far down.
Your tie looks good, though.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're looking fresh tonight, Deficio. All right, well, let's start by recapping how the championship contenders got here, starting all the way back in San Francisco. Samsung Galaxy, they were 5-1 in group stage, 3-0 in quarters and semis for an overall record of 11-1 at the tournament.
Yeah, and I keep saying it, the last time a Samsung team did it, Deficio, was Samsung White when they went on their legendary run. You know, this is a team that honestly has just gotten better throughout the tournament. They just continue to improve. They get quicker and quicker, and I think that, you know, even though they come in as heavy underdogs, you can't sleep on them because their early game is their early game is good, and then their mid game, where they really take off and start taking down turrets, is phenomenal.
Yeah, one thing you can't, understate for these guys is that they work so hard. They put in so much work to get where they are, and it's been a very slow climb for them up to this point.
Yeah, and you know, people question the run that they had here, but still, they had to go through teams like TSM, teams like RNG to win their first seed and then get into their group stage, bracket stage.
I mean, obviously, you also want to mention H2K here, who they took down in the semifinal. Yep. The last European hope wasn't a problem for them at all. Honestly, they outclassed them in every single way, from pick and ban phase to the early game, to the mid game, to the late game, and we see some of the clips from it here.
Yeah, I mean, and this team has been outspoken as well about taking this tournament one step at a time. You know, their original goal was just to get out of groups, and at each stage, they're just looking at the opponent directly in front of them. And honestly, they've smashed every opponent directly in front of them.
Yeah, exactly right. And you have to say that the way that they've done it, the practice that they've put in between everything, we check their solo queue accounts a lot. Since that gauntlet run in the LCK, this team really has continued to put in that hard work and get better.
Yeah, definitely so. And I really wish we could talk about a team like Samsung, who's 10-0 right now, like the winning streak they're on, and say like these guys will be favorites to win the final. They're looking fantastic, just growing and growing. But sadly, that is just not the case, because they faced the best team of all time.
Exactly. So let's go ahead and talk about that, because they did save the big boss for last year. They want to hoist the Summoners Cup. They're going to have to go through the reigning champions in SK Telecom T1.
And it's not a 10-0 winning streak just yet for SKT, but they've still been looking so good. They got 5-1 in the groups. They only lost that one game to Flash Wolves where Faker was trolling a little bit. And then honestly, they've been looking fantastic ever since.
Yep, 3-1 in quarters, 3-2 in semis. So their overall score in 11-4 doesn't look as impressive as Samsung Galaxy's. And that's what you were talking about, Deficio. When you put their score lines next to each other, it makes Samsung look to an outsider like the favorite. But that's not the case here, is it, Kobe?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in their series versus the Tigers, which was such an epic series, so much of the power came from Faker in that mid lane. As we're watching so much of this stuff happen around the bottom lane, that was where the enemy teams have been attacking SKT.
Yeah, it certainly is. And when you have a look at the ability for, I guess, them to withstand all the pressure that comes out of picks, like the Ashe, like the Misfortune, and continue to grind out a series, that's one of this team's biggest strengths. They really do not give up at any stage, and you have to be able to take them down to the wire.
Definitely. I mean, Rox Tigers did do that in every single game they played. We had a lot of close games, or the games Rox managed to win because they snowballed early. There were the games where SKT managed to like win a big late game team fighter. Everything we're seeing right now looks kind of bad though for SKT, because it's all them dying on the bottom side of the map. And as Kobe said before, that was the strategy for the Rox Tigers, and it worked in 2 games. But then you get to see why a team is so good, is when they can adapt in a best-of-5 series. They can pick themselves up and they can kind of rebound.
And even that play there, we talk, you talk about snowballing early. You have to snowball early against them and keep that up for 30+ minutes, because even teams getting these early leads against SKT, they almost can win fights, down 5,000 gold.
Yeah, and this, I mean, this goes on for a bit because there were those 5 games, because each of them was so close. But we do have to remember that in part of this SKT victory came from that sub situation that they run. Of course, Bengi being the benefactor, or rather the initiator of those 3 victories that they picked up in that series.
And ultimately being the savior, right? Because this guy came in and they were down 1-2 when they resub him back into the game. Honestly, his early game in game 1 wasn't good enough because Peanut was chasing him around the map. Sorry, that was blank. So when you have a look
at game 1.
I was right.
I was right.
You're right. I was getting eyes from Kobe. I was like, "What's going on here?" No, it was. His early game
I'm
wasn't
not doing
good
it.
enough.
I'm just looking.
Are you flirting with him?
It's your fault.
The fact that they did go down those 2 games has to shake the confidence in the second jungler. So sure, now you're looking at it and you're saying on the day, as it was for Bengi, we can rely on him. But he hasn't been playing all that much League of Legends, and if Blank isn't able to step up, Ambition is a very formidable opponent.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether this is necessarily still a strength. I still have big question marks about the SKT junglers.
I think we should have. I think it's fair. Ambition has looked really good so far, and we're not serious if we're saying, oh, Bengi's been great all year, that's why he steps in and, does so well in the semi-final. No, he's actually been pretty poor in most of the games he played. That's why he got benched as well. So watching like Ice and SKT, the feature that came out earlier about them, we talked about this in PTL as well. Like you see Bengi after the series, when he managed to win 3 games and get his team into the final, like he's almost breaking down in the elevator because it's so fantastic for him. There's so much pressure on him. And that's why I think the story is fantastic. And he has a lot of confidence now going into this final.
And so well deserved for them. So well deserved for both teams to be moving on to the finals here tomorrow. Now we're going to look a little bit more at this. So if you're joining us in client, check out youtube.com/LOL Esports for the full-length version of Worlds Tonight. Now, both teams have had their bumps on the road to Los Angeles. So what weaknesses can their opponents look to exploit moving into this best-of-5 series?
Who are we going to start with?
Let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and start with Samsung Galaxy.
All right, so Samsung Galaxy. Honestly, the weakness for them hasn't shown up because they've won, 10 straight games, right?
That's a good point.
It's going to have to be something else. And so Ruler in the bottom lane is a rookie. And that would actually be the person on the team I would try and attack, especially since when SKT have lost, the majority of their games have been to a dominant AD carry, to Deft, or to the other 2 games that they did to Prey, where his Ashe was instrumental in getting, not only lane dominance, but also mid-game picks. So most of the games SKT have been losing have been to hugely important AD carries, and that's a lot of weight on a rookie's shoulders. No matter how good he has been playing or how much he's stepped up, that's still so much pressure.
Now, what about the fact that a lot of people are still looking at this squad with their 11-1 record here at Worlds and saying, well, they've yet to be tested, really, right? That they, that if you look at strength of schedule as compared to SKT,
I think
it's very hard to judge what their true strength is. Now, I'm not saying that people are framing that in a way that they don't deserve to be in the finals. No, it's just that in terms of judging relative strength, how do you do it when they are smashing their opponents?
But they both played RNG, and this is what I go back to. Samsung made RNG look abysmal. RNG, at the end of the day, looked like the best LPL team. They were able to take it to this SKT lineup, and Duke was getting solo killed in the top lane by Looper. Even game 2 top lane and top side of the map in general for RNG looked so good against SKT. And we thought at one point, like, people were starting to believe that RNG is maybe going to be able to take them down. Sure, that fell away and the inconsistency was still there out of the squad, but Samsung is so good at exploiting mistakes. And the myth that SKT does not make mistakes needs to be dispelled because they still do it. And if they make too many mistakes against this Samsung team, Samsung will beat them in a couple of games.
I think the problem for Samsung here is the fact they just haven't played SKT or Rox Tigers yet. And it's the same thing people said about like H2K coming into semifinal. You haven't faced a Korean powerhouse just yet. And it's the same for Samsung now. And it's just because there is such a big difference, especially in best of 5, between SKT, Rox Tigers, and any other team in the world, because you need to have like great pick and ban phase. You can't make mistakes in game. You can't tilt or anything. Like you need to be 100% focused for potentially full 5 games. And that is the only issue for Samsung, is they haven't been able to beat or play against these 2 teams.
Yeah, and I guess the thing that really hurts them, and this is the argument that I like more, is that back in the LCK, when they did play these teams, they weren't able to pick up the victory. So if there is a criticism to throw at this young Samsung lineup, it's the fact that they weren't able to beat KT until that gauntlet run, and they are still yet to really take it to someone like a Rox, like a SKT in a domestic tournament.
And the biggest thing for SKT, hasn't been that they don't make mistakes. It's how quickly they can recover from those mistakes. And this being a best of 5 is so good for them, especially on that championship stage. They basically had that trial by fire with Rox Tigers, and coming through that successfully not only were they able to, overcome a surprise pick, they were able to overcome what they thought is their strongest opponent, but Bengi now has confidence. Like, the entire team is flooded with confidence after going through that extremely strenuous test.
And, for maybe the first time, they're looking to try and define a tournament meta because they've got the 4-1 split push really going, and Wolf and Bang have brought a little bit more lane dominance through the Zyra pick. It was countered well by the Misfortune, but they are trying to do new things. I like the fact that, SKT, they're anything but untested in this tournament. They went through Rocks, but they also went through probably the best second seed as well in RNG at the end of the day. So I really do think that this team has shown a lot to get to the grand final, and that may come back in a pick ban because they've played so much more than this Samsung Galaxy lineup.
Well, here's the thing, though. SKT haven't really shown anything surprising. I guess the only surprise was Bengi played in Italy and won the game and actually did pretty well. Nothing else has been special. They didn't bring out the Misfortune. That was Rocks Tigers who did that. Another team picked it up.
The Ash was surprising.
The Ash was surprising in a sense, but it was obviously something people had talked about potentially against Caitlyn. But
we all thought it was bad. We all thought Ash was,
well, you liked it before the tournament. Back yourself up here.
Before the tournament I did, but during the tournament there was a reason no one else was playing it. We thought it was bad, and then all of a sudden it's first pickable in that series. I think that was a legitimate surprise.
Also, is it not special that SKT have shown so many different styles? Like, they've done the 4-1, they've done 1-3-1, they've run poke comps, they've run standard team
that doesn't
fight.
make you weaker that you have shown too much. You've basically shown I can pick almost anything and I can make it work. And that's actually why I think SKT coming into this, pick and ban wise, look way stronger than Samsung.
Yep. Okay, so we're talking about a lot of strengths here for SKT. When I asked you guys for weaknesses,
I gave you one in the end. Samsung's pick and ban
if we could go ahead and redirect to some weaknesses, that'd be great.
Duke in one-on-one situations has been caught napping a couple of times. When he plays well, he plays very well, but he's been exploited a couple of games. And at the same time, I think that Wolf is kind of back in wandering Wolf phase, where he just searches for
he's definitely getting hit by a lot of arrows.
Yeah. He's outside the top 20 again. He's snuck his way in. He's back out now. He's back out.
And honestly, that's what you have to look to exploit. Like, I still think the double jungle is not good. Those Kindred not, doing their job. And then when you have a look at top, inconsistent, and Wolf, very inconsistent at the same time. Any mistakes, and not on a team level, they're on individual levels.
So put this in the context of Samsung Galaxy then for me, right? Because we know their matchup. So exactly who is going to be able to, capitalize on those weaknesses? Do you really think that Ruler and Core JJ are going to be able to do that, or is it all in the top lane on Kuve?
I think the bot lane can definitely punish someone like Wolf. I think a lot of the bot lane picks right now, like, individual skill means a lot, but also synergy and how your team is playing around you means almost even more. Because if you play a lot of CC, like think of the Ashe, and your team is literally playing around bottom side where your jungler is there, your teleports are there, you can set up so many plays with the Ashe arrow and like go for these kills. It's what Rocks Tigers did against SKT. And I think if there is a clear weakness for SKT early on, it's their solo lane picks are very scaling focused. A lot of Oriannas, a lot of Victor. We have the scaling top lanes like Echo up there as well for Duke. And that means Duke and Faker doesn't do that much when it comes to roaming early on. Other teams can pick more early game. We saw Rumble from Rocks Tigers. We see picks that can roam potentially from Crown if you can actually play Aurelion Soul. And then you can try and punish that bot lane while the Soul laners are just working towards the towers.
The other thing is the teleports coming in. That's one thing that has been a bit shaky from Duke as well, aside from, the standard play. But there have been those teleports. And if you have a bad teleport, not only does it mess up the top laner's game plan, but it messes up that bottom side of the map as well.
And I think that the big thing to look at this is that Samsung play the game 6 minutes quicker than SKT. And what that means is, there's a big question mark about when SKT take them past that point. But how many of these mid games can they get set up? Because they keep doing it against every single team where like they're pretty much even, maybe 1,000 gold lead at 15 minutes. Then they blow that game wide open. They're able to exploit a lot of the mistakes. So I do think there is something to it. Can they do it 3 games in a row versus SKT? No, no one can. But will they get one of those mid games where they're able to blow the map open? I think they still will.
I think, though, that, the game with 3 Infernal Drakes against Rocks going as late as it did, that kind of just shows, once again, SKT's ability to stay calm in a situation where everyone else had written them off, right? I mean, we're all watching that game going, there's no way Rocks loses this.
Whoa, not me. I chose SKT.
Well, no, I'm not saying, I'm saying in that one specific game when we were watching it. Yeah, I know that you did not, you did not throw your bid in for Rocks, but, that is one of those situations where, again, if we're going to flop back to SKT's strengths, it just seems like there's no way that this team can be rattled.
Yeah,
You have to be willing to grind against them. I think that's really fair to say always. If you're going to beat SKT, it's not going to be a quick game. You really do have to be able to take them the distance over and over again. We've seen it every time they've been beaten internationally.
I do think we need to highlight that Rocks Tigers were very, very close to winning that series. So you can definitely take them down. If you're equally as good, slightly better, you know, you can definitely beat them in BO5s. And some teams are like Rocks Tigers. If Samsung is playing at an absolute 100% and they surprise us even more, they can definitely take SKT to 5 games.
Let's go ahead and talk about that mid lane matchup because we've hit on a bunch of the other ones. Faker, you know, coming in. Some people are saying, oh, maybe he's not, you know, the god that he once was. But then he shows up here
we take
at
it
semifinals.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So
I'm looking at my top 20 guys, Kobe, when I say that, not you.
Hey, he was number 2, not number 1.
That's an insult.
Honestly, though, I think we can definitely all agree that Faker won't have as much control against Crown as he did against Kuro.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
Because against Kuro, Faker absolutely had control, you know, in that series, even when in the games where SKT was losing. I don't think that he can quite to that degree have that control against Crown in a 1v1. One of the things is that their previous matchup in LCK Summer was that they had the Ash Arrow and they were firing the mid lane at Crown. So Crown was getting punished by the rest of SKT, you know, and then there's that, you know, maybe 5 CS or something that Faker
They also gave Victor to Crown in some of these, in one of the games, you know, in the summer split. So it's not like they haven't played against him before at all. They know exactly what he's doing. I think, obviously, Faker is a better player, but I think another advantage for SKT and Faker is champion pool-wise. The fact that Crown has still not shown Crown. Syndra. He's not shown himself. He hasn't shown Syndra so far. Looked again a little bit at his solo queue account. This week he's 0-3 on it, barely even played it, and it's hard to get scrims this week leading into a final, so that really makes me nervous when it comes to that pick and ban phase. Already in Seoul we haven't seen either. I don't know if he has any surprise picks. He needs one.
All right, well, let's see here. Final thoughts before we go. I want to get you guys' ideas on what will make or break either of our finalists.
See, I've flopped on this so much. I've talked about this game for so long. You know, first I thought the key to success was that top lane. Get Cuvée ahead. See if you can get him on a Rumble or a Cannon. He can impact the rest of the map. And then I look at the Dragon control and how important it is. Being pointed out multiple times by Deficio. And I just see this and I'm like, get Jin Nami. I want Jin Nami, Jin Karma in the bottom lane as many games as possible and try and snowball that side of the map. In saying that, when you have someone as new as Core JJ to support, someone as new as Ruler on the international stage, and you're going up against the gods that, you know, are SK Telecom's bottom lane, you do have to be worried about that win condition. So I think they're going to get a couple of games, I do, but I think that ultimately SKT wins this one.
I think we're going to see both teams try and get counterpick for top lane and try and get the scaling advantage. It's something we have seen from both teams. You know, if one team goes blind, Rumble, you go Echo as a counterpick against it, and you win that split push game later on. I think that's going to be important for both teams and could be a way in for Samsung because they will be on red side in some of the games. And then, as Spawn said, I think you need to play around the bottom side because that's where you can try and gank SKT while they have scaling solo laners, and you need a jungler who's ganking a lot early. Blank and Benki does not gank a lot early on. It was way less than Peanut. Ambition, if he's super active on things like Olaf, he can actually go in and really start snowballing lanes, and that can give an advantage to Samsung.
Even the thing like picks like Skarner, because he has been playing it, and I think that does give a lot of control and a lot of potential to, you know, exploit Wolf if he does wander around the map a little bit carelessly. So I do think that Ambition has a lot of, I guess, weight on his shoulders as the oldest member. Like, he's waited for this for so many years
shot
now.
caller as well.
Yeah, shot caller to be able to exploit that part of the game.
You know, plus the fact that he's going to have to deal with changing junglers. When another jungler is coming off of the bench, just watched with full vision of both sides of the map, everything that Ambition did in the previous game with his coach sitting next to him, that does help a jungler out a lot. Plus, I'm very curious to see, you know, how that top lane battle does play out, because Cuvée has shown to be one of the most versatile players at the entire tournament. Like, this guy has 15 solo kills. He's been playing whatever champion you need from him. But, you know, I'm very curious to see how Duke will hold up.
All right, well, SKT the favorites, but Samsung Galaxy looking to give them a run for their money. Of course, we'll have more time to talk about this tomorrow. That's going to do it for us on this League Fest edition of Worlds tonight. So stay with us, though, because the party continues in just a few minutes as we celebrate the music of League of Legends.